A high school boy picks up a magic notebook and uses it to execute criminals. That's the premise of Death Note, the iconic series by Sugumi Oba and Takeshi Obata. The cat and mouse game between Light and L spawned a diligent fanbase that's incredibly active, despite being a decade old. However, I haven't seen anyone here on YouTube advocating for Kira. A lot of people on the internet seem to empathize with this point of view, so I wanted to explain why, provide the best argument I could for why someone might agree with him, and just break down, was Kira right? Part 1, Greatest Good for the Greatest Number. The closest thing we get to an argument on Light's philosophy in the actual series is in chapter 105, Impossible. Here, Light points out that Kira's actions have reduced crime by 70%, and that war has stopped entirely. Let's put that into perspective. The number of people killed by war per year is 50,000. The number of people who die in homicides is 400,000. 70% of those two combined is 315,000 people saved. That is insane. Of course, Light hasn't stopped all people from dying. He's just created a monopoly on violence, where he's the only one who can safely commit it. Anyone else just gets killed by Kira. This borrows an idea from Thomas Hobbes' Leviathan. Hobbes talks about a state of nature without government, where people are allowed to kill each other without any certain consequence, and they do. So, it's better to have a government, even an oppressive government, because now there's only one entity able to commit violence, rather than everyone being able to do it. This is also why, even though the US police is one of the most abusive and violent police forces in the Western world, the second people tried to establish a zone without police in Portland, murders went up like crazy. So what does this mean for Death Note? Well, for one, it means that Light isn't actually doing anything super new. He's just taking the place of the government. Executing criminals is something that the government already does. Light is just more efficient and better at it. So, to be a net positive for the world, he doesn't have to be perfect. He just has to be better than the government, or at least provide some additional benefit. And that, he definitely does. Light cut crime 70% past what it is. That's because would-be criminals are scared the government might catch them, but they're even more afraid of Kira, who can kill them with just their name and face. The whole point of the Leviathan is to deter crime, and Kira does that just better. Sure, he executes a couple innocents, but so does the government. They get the wrong guy sometimes, and some governments even bomb other countries or engage in war and kill civilians that way. Compare that to Kira, who actually stopped all wars and is clear who's in the right. Matsuda even wonders aloud, is what we're doing the right thing? Is Kira maybe a positive force in the world on net, and would catching him maybe be harmful? Side note, I love Matsuda. His character follows the jester archetype, the comic relief that's surprisingly philosophical. It's Matsuda who wonders if what they're doing is the right thing, and Matsuda who actually reflects in the epilogue, and Matsuda who saves them all in the warehouse by shooting Light. But back to the video. So, Matsuda wonders if Kira is good, and Aizawa responds by saying it's a fake peace. He claims people are only compliant because they're afraid. But how is this any different than what the government does? If people weren't afraid of getting arrested, they would do all sorts of things. What Kira's doing isn't categorically new. He's just imposing a new set of laws onto the people with new consequences. It's no different than the government, just more efficient. And I'm sure Light would say he's just scratching the surface of what's possible. For example, thousands of people die every year in third world countries in America because pharma companies price gouge medicine and people can't afford it. Kira could probably fix that pretty easily. There are countless regimes that oppress their own citizens. Kira could force them to stop. Basically, any man-made problem in the world could be effortlessly stopped by the Death Note, and that's shown in the incredible amount of people saved. So, is Kira good? Well, it's complicated. It's pretty clear that Kira believes in utilitarianism, the greatest good for the greatest number. This basically means that an action is justified if it results in a net good for society. If this is the way you view things, Kira is undoubtedly a positive force in the world. 315,000 people saved is a lot of people, and stopping all war is a big deal. Even if you consider how many people Light killed, he says in the alternate ending of Death Note that it's about 125,000, spread over 6 years, so about 20,000 people per year. So on net, that's an average of 315,000 saved minus 20,000 people killed, 295,000 people saved. Light mostly killed violent criminals, but even if you believe their lives are worth the same as those he saved, then given that he saved 315 people per year, he saved a net 295,000 lives every year. You can say Kira is wrong all you want, but I'm sure those 295,000 people would disagree with you. Part 2, but isn't Light a psycho? The short answer is yes. The long answer is abso-fucking-lutely he is. He uses Misa as a pawn. He's cool with his dad dying, and even killing Sayu. He shows zero remorse for killing anyone in the series. He manipulates Mikami and Takeda, and even considers killing Naomi Mishra with his bare hands. Most of all, he didn't need to try to kill L. He could have just ignored the task force entirely and went about his merry way killing criminals. And if he only cared about the cause, this is what he would have done. But he cares about more. He cares about winning. Light is undoubtedly sociopathic. He's manipulative, he's arrogant. You could say he's just obsessed with his goal, but if that was true, he'd still display remorse at Sayu's capture, or sadness at his father's passing. Light does neither. When Soichiro dies, he says, "I've got bigger things to deal with right now. I've got to get him to write Mello's name in the notebook." His inner monologue is zero remorse, all just strategizing. Light does cry when Soichiro dies, but it's unclear if this is still a performance. Then, when Sayu's abducted, Light is smiling, saying, "They got me!" And not 5 minutes later, he's gushing at the idea of playing his cat and mouse game with N instead of L. And as part of the game, he considers killing his own sister. Light doesn't seem to care about other people in the slightest, just a singular pursuit of his mission. Part 3, does it matter? But hold on a second. Why do a few lives matter when he's still saving a net 295,000 people a year? A 70% reduction in violent crime is absolutely incredible. And if Light had stopped there, maybe there would have been an argument for his actions being justified. But then, Light reveals that he plans to one day kill lazy people as well. I think most people would agree that this is absolutely insane and tyrannical. Laziness isn't a crime, and this is literally Light just imposing his will on the world. Of course, you could say, well, maybe he'd be okay if he hadn't gone that far. But why is that a fair thing to say? What if the reverse was true, and he'd gone farther? What if he was racist or homophobic? Or even if he wasn't, what if Mikami had been any one of those things? That's a genocide in the making. Can you imagine Hitler or the KKK with a death note? And it's easy to see how that might spiral in other ways too. For example, Light's personal life. Someone giving you shit in the day-to-day? Kill them off, you deserve it. A professor gives you a bad grade? Have them change it before you kill them, because of course the god of the new world deserves an A. It'll turn you into a vile person for sure, because once you're desensitized, once killing someone becomes easy for you, you'll never turn back. When you're trying to make a better world, anything becomes justifiable, and that's the problem with utilitarianism. You can kill anyone you want to, adopt any stance possible, and they would be okay because it's for the greater good. Why not kill everyone who disagreed with Kira so you could have a harmonious society? You're the god of the new world after all. This kind of happened in Death Note too. Ray Penber wasn't a criminal, neither was Naomi Mishra, neither was L. I strongly believe that if Light had not been stopped, he would have killed all dissidents, becoming a dictator who ruled with an iron fist. When you're creating a more perfect world, anything, killing all the lazy people, leading your father to death, manipulating your own girlfriend, anything is okay. And that's why he's worse than the government. Government needs to obey its citizens or get voted out of office. They have checks and balances. Light doesn't. In the manga's epilogue, Matsuda notes that crime has gone back up, and he wonders if they've done the right thing stopping Kira. He's told that if they hadn't stopped Kira, they would be dead, which means it must have been the right thing to do. That's true, but it was also the right thing to do because the Death Note was the most powerful weapon in the world, and the world was incredibly lucky it didn't do more harm than it did. If you like this video, please consider subscribing. I'm going to be making a lot more content on anime, like analytical stuff, but probably also funny stuff too, so come through, enjoy, it's literally free. So I think I'm going to do something on why Pain was right next and make this a series on defending the philosophy of certain villains. So yeah, like, subscribe, and I haven't really thought of a catchy closing line thing, so